Good morning, you guys. How are you? Good? Was your week perfect? Was your week good? We're ending one more week. TGIF. This week I heard that there was an earthquake around, well, I got all sorts of different information, but around Fortaleza, which was amazing to hear, to read about. And what else? What else happened to us during this week? I hope you guys studied a lot, had a lot of fun. I hope your lives are getting back to normal little by little, with all caution possible, but still getting back to your old routines. That's good, right, as well? My week was good too. And today we're going to get started. Back to our topic, the pleasure of reading. I don't know if you remember, but a while ago, I talked to you about the possibility of getting to know you through pictures. With that in mind, today we're going to do one thing, and next class we're going to do a different thing. At least I'm going to see what you guys think about that. But for today, I want you to prepare a picture of you. It can be a picture that you've taken recently. It can be a picture of you as a child. It can be a family picture, whatever picture suits you. Especially a face shot. It doesn't have to show your body, but especially your face. And you're going to write a small introduction about yourself. I'm going to give you the place you're going to do that at the end of this first class, okay? And then we are going to start the new period by showing you guys your pictures. First things first, only do it if it is okay with you and your family, if you don't mind posting a picture. If you don't want to post it, it's fine. Don't worry about that, okay? And from my side, I'm going to take a picture of the team we have here so that you can get to know the people behind the cameras. If you don't know them. But if you don't know them, you're going to get to know them. So today, our team is Henrique, as always, and Tassi. So we're going to take a picture, and then we're going to show you back, okay? So this is what we're going to do today. Surprise, surprise. It's going to be a surprise for them, too. Okay? And, well, that's it. And for next class, I also have an idea, but I'm going to discuss with you guys later on. Okay? So, let's get back to our topic of the unit. Unit 5 talks about the pleasure of reading. And if you relate reading only to studying, then there's something wrong there. Reading should also be about pleasure. Reading about stuff you like and reading magazines, reading news is an important part of life, both for your studies and for your joy of living. But when it comes to the aspect, oh, sure.
O Pedro Ivens está perguntando o seguinte: professor, eu sei que é uma pergunta de um conteúdo passado, mas quando tem no discurso direto tomorrow ou yesterday, como fica no discurso indireto?
Perfect, Pedro. Okay, I'll tell you about that. Yesterday, I'm not going to write, only if you ask me to. I don't think we need to write. Yesterday is going to be the day before. Why the day before? The day before the day we were speaking. So picture this. Today is Friday, and I am going to tell you about a conversation I had yesterday, okay? And when wait, let me organize this again. I'm going to report to you something that Tassiane told me today. Tassiane told me today that yesterday, a student called her, okay? So she says, yesterday Pedro called me. Today is Friday, and she's telling me that you have called her the day before. yesterday. Why the day before? Because if I meet Tassi next week and she tells me, I talked to Pedro. I talked to Pedro last Friday. So see, last Friday is a week before. And he told me that, I talked to I talked to Pedro last Friday. And when I talked to him on Friday, he told me that he had called the day before. So the day before the day you are talking. I got confused. I got confusing. I'll do it in Portuguese, okay? Ontem vai ser o dia anterior. O dia anterior a quê? O dia anterior à nossa conversa. Então, se uma pessoa disser para mim hoje que fez algo ontem, qualquer dia no futuro que alguém pergunte o que foi que o Pedro disse, ele disse, eu encontrei com ele na sexta e ele disse que ele tinha feito tal coisa no dia anterior. O dia anterior a quê? O dia anterior ao dia da conversa. Então é the day before, tá? Amanhã é the day after. Por quê? Porque se eu encontrar com você e eu disser alguma coisa aqui que eu vou fazer amanhã, no futuro, quando alguém perguntar, o que foi que a Alhandra disse? Quando eu encontrei com ela na sexta, ela disse que ia viajar the day after. Ok? Porque aí, independente do dia da conversa, o que é que importa? É que eu estou relembrando algo que foi falado em um dia. Em relação àquele dia da conversa, amanhã é o dia seguinte, o dia depois. Ok, Pedro? Have I answered your question? Let me know if I made myself understood. But yesterday, the day before, tomorrow, the day after. Okay? Let me know if it's okay. Because otherwise I can write an example and make it clearer. Meanwhile, you say it's okay or not. I'm going to start moving on, okay? Okay, let us know. So we're going to talk about the pleasure of reading. As I was saying, nowadays, with all the recent changes we have gone through with ANO, reading is becoming more and more important. Having ideas and opinions and understanding of different issues is becoming more important, even for your college entrance examinations. I am not saying you should read for that, but I'm saying that reading will also help you on that. So, in English and in the other subjects, they are trying to contextualize more and more the questions based on life experiences and what the world is going through. Questions are less based on structures and more based on actual knowledge of world culture. Just one thing. Tá, se ele disse alguma coisa, o Pedro? Okay, Pedro. So anyway, you're going to find in your NA test questions about global warming, and you'll be asked to write a composition on prejudice and on education. So they're going to base the questions on the knowledge of the world, of our lives. Maybe the pandemic will be discussed, social isolation. So the more you read from a diversity of topics, the better prepared you'll be for the tests, right? And one thing that I was talking to the guys from the first grade, I was mentioning the last English questions on NA, and what amazed me is that they are asking more and more about general understanding, rather than asking questions that you can find the answer in one sentence. So analyzing NA from last year, from 2019, it happened more than once that they would ask, what's the general idea of the text? And many of the options were true. They were information that you could find in the text. They just were not the general idea. So if you were picking pieces of information, you might have guessed the answer wrong. So they can tell you, for example, the good things about social isolation and the bad things about social distancing. And then in the end, they're going to say, the option is social distancing is good. And even though there is a moment in the text that it is said that there are good things to social distancing, that is not the general idea. The general idea would be the positive and bad effects of social distancing. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you do have to get a sense, the idea from the reading that involves the general idea and not specific information. Anyway, let's get back to the pleasure of reading. So when do you read for pleasure? At what moments in your routine do you stop to read something just because you want to? Is it when you go to the hairdresser and you're waiting for your moment? Is it at a doctor's appointment office? Or do you have as a habit to take a time from your day to read for pleasure, to read things you want to read? Do you generally have a bedside table book? Are you generally reading something when you finish a book, you start a new one? I have to confess I used to have that, but nowadays I usually have a bedside app on the cell phone. Modern times. But it's very nice when you have the habit of taking a time from your day to read, right? So, to start discussing the topic today, I brought here, this is a true piece of information. It says, what are the top 10 most read books in the world? And then they explain that they are talking about books that not by the number of books printed, but by the numbers of books that were acquired. So they are saying that there are other books that have been printed in a larger scale, but they are considered that if they have not been sold, maybe they were not read. So they were basing them on the number of books sold, and maybe this is not correct, but the idea is that counting through the number of books sold, they are believing that this is actually the number of books read. Okay? So then you have the top 10. And we begin at the Bible. The Holy Bible has sold, I don't know, what's that number? Would that be 3,900 million copies? I believe so, because otherwise it would be in millions of copies. That's it. 3,900 million copies of the Holy Bible. Then you have 820 million of the book by Mao Tse-tung, which gives us the idea that they are, you have books related to religion being well sold, right? Being bestsellers. Then we have Harry Potter, which was your guys' last week's suggestion for me that I should read Harry Potter, right? With 400 million copies sold. It's an outstanding number. And if you consider that it is a recent book, I mean, not so recent, but it isn't a book that has been out for ages, right? It has sold a lot. It's amazing. Then you have The Lord of the Rings, and you can see that it is a big difference from 400 million to 103 million copies of The Lord of the Rings. And here I'll tell you, I haven't read The Lord of the Rings, but I tried to watch the movie, and I didn't really like it. Kill me, but I didn't like it. I've just seen the first one, and I was so frustrated when by the end of the movie, they are at a river, right? And nothing has really been, completed, and the movie ends, and I had to wait for an entire year to see the rest of it. I was like, forget about that. Anyway, so I haven't read The Lord of the Rings. Then you have The Alchemist, and this is a Brazilian author, right? Paulo Coelho. This one I've read a long, long time ago. Maybe I should read again. With 65 million copies. Then you have the Da Vinci Code, which is also recent, and there is a movie by Tom Hanks. Then you have the Twilight Saga, also a movie. Then you have Gone with the Wind, which is a classic, and I don't know if you have seen the movie. I remember seeing it when I was a child, and it's a very, very long movie. Haven't read it either. Then you have one of these, I don't know, self-assisting books, Think and Grow Rich, with 30 million copies. And finally, you have the Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank, right? Which is a classic, and I'm sure you've read it in school, right? Maybe you've even read it in English. This is a very famous classical book that tells the true story. It is actually the writings of a teenager, right? Okay, you guys, so just general information as we're going to talk about the pleasure of reading. And despite all this information, the unit starts talking about Jorge Amado. It mentions two of his books, right? The Captains of the Sands and Gabriela, Clove and Cinnamon. So this is the text you guys were supposed to read, even though it's a very tiny text, very simple to read. I'm sure you had no trouble with it. And then you had the homework to do the activities based on these texts. So Henrique, can you move on? Next one. So this was your homework. You had to find transparent words and only one false cognate. So for the transparent words, I think you have found all sorts of them, because there are always many true cognates in the text. But the false cognate was harder to find. Can you name the false cognate that you found in the text? I'm going to ask you to type it, and then Tassi is going to tell me, okay? What was the false cognate that you found? Tassi, eles vão escrever uma palavrinha aí tu me diz, okay? So, by heart, I know there's one. Maybe you found another one. But there is a very clear and common false cognate in this text. While you guys think of that, I'm going to correct exercise 2. Okay? Or should I wait? I'll wait. What's the false cognate you found in the text? Henrique, tu pode voltar para o texto? Thank you. Come on, you guys. I'll see the transparent words while you don't tell me about the false cognate, right? You have band, you have religious, you have scapes, involved, acclaimed is a cognate. So many. No false cognate? Come on, you guys. I'll give up if you don't tell me. Let me just find it in the text. Just there are copies available. I don't find it right now. I'm going to give it away because you guys are not saying anything. Sobe só pouquinho aí. It is the story, the exploits, use, Docklands, temples, Thorvald is arrested, the beloved Brazilian classic, One Spring Day. Bota mais pra cá. No one has the answer? Tassi, nada aí ainda, Tassi? Vai. Library. Library is a false cognate. I don't see it in the text right now, but library is a false cognate. Why is it? Because it takes us to the place where you sell books, which is a bookstore, and the actual word for what we think when we hear library is bookstore, right? Which is the place where books are sold. A library is a place where you go to read books for free. Maybe you stay there to read them, and you can borrow them. That would be in Portuguese, biblioteca. That's why it's a false cognate. Perfect. The word, guys, would be novel. Novel, because when we hear novel, it takes us to novela, and actually novel is a romance, right? It's a book that has a fiction story, and it has a climax, and it builds around, you might have a romantic situation, but actually it's a fiction story with a climax. So and the word that brings us to novel is novela, right? And novela in English is soap opera, which is so different. And then it has a long story behind it to explain why it's called soap opera. But we're not going to get into that, okay? So the false cognate was novel. Next. Exercise 2 now. Read the text again and find words that correspond to the definitions below. A temporary stoppage of activities in protest against an act or condition. What's the word? When workers stop doing what they are supposed to do because they want to protest, because they want better payment, because they want better work conditions, because they want women to be treated as equals. So when workers stop what they're doing to protest, to show that they are not happy, what's that word in English? Novel. Just one false cognate. Guys, you see transparent words, there are many, right? That we were seeing, acclaimed, banned, because those are the real cognates. There are more than those. But even though they give you lots of lines, there is just one word, one false cognate, which is novel. Okay? And in the exercise it says, and one false cognate. Okay? I don't know why they have all those lines, but they want only one false cognate. Okay? Okay, Tassi? Yes, library é um false cognate. Por quê? Porque library remete a gente à livraria, né? Se você estiver analisando só como é que eu vou dizer, pela raiz da palavra, né? Você vai chegar de library para livraria. E na verdade, library é biblioteca, né? Livraria seria bookstore. Então é um falso cognato por isso. Porque a palavra que ela te remete não é a tradução dela no português. Até assim, diferente de outros falsos cognatos, pelo menos ela não te remete para uma ideia absurda, que não tem nada a ver. Ainda dá para relacionar. Não, mas livraria não é quase a mesma coisa de biblioteca? Então, pelo menos na casa dos falsos cognatos, é um falso cognato que não te perde por completo, né? Mas é um falso cognato porque a primeira palavra que te remete não é exatamente a tradução. Library, biblioteca. Bookstore, livraria. Certo? Seria mais ou menos o que acontece com parents, né? Que a gente associa diretamente a parentes. E, na verdade, parents em inglês quer dizer pais. Aí é um falso cognato que pelo menos te deixa mais ou menos ali no mesmo campo de significado, não te remete a uma coisa absurda. Mas ainda assim é um falso cognato porque não é exatamente o que você espera. Parentes em inglês a gente diz relatives. Ok? Vinícius? Ok? Então vamos para o significado, segunda questão. Exercise number 2. Read the text again and find the word. So, letter A. When you are working and you stop working to protest. What's that word in English? You are doing what? Guys, help me out here. I'm feeling lonely. Alguma resposta aí, Tassi? No? Oh, come on, that's easy. Remember the truck drivers in Brazil? They all stopped and closed the avenues, the highways. They were doing what? They were on a... I'll wait for you. I won't answer. Come on, you gotta help me out. It's in the text. The workers, when they... I'm going to do it now, on you. I'm upset that no one's answering. I won't answer anything anymore. I'll stop working now. As a protest. I am going on a... The word, Tassi, a resposta, Tassi, eles colocaram. Eu tô... Thank you, Thais. You saved my day. Thank you. That's it. You are going on a strike. I am going to go on a strike because you guys are not answering my questions. And I'm feeling lonely. Come on. Perfect. On a strike. Fazer greve, strike. Perfect. B. A woman authorized to perform the sacred rites of a religion. This is one of those few words in Portuguese when you have a word for the feminine and a word for the masculine, which is very rare in English, right? Doctor, lawyer, they are both the same for men and women. But this one has two words. What is it? Really? I talk too much. Okay, come on. This one. What's the answer for B? Thais, help me out here. Where are you, Pedro, Vinicius? Where are you guys with your answers? A woman that performs rites in a church, in a temple. How is she called? I am waiting. I am on a... No answers are coming out of me because I am on a strike. You guys have to answer it. Come on, it's so easy. You didn't do your homework, did you? Because it's easy. It's in the text. I'm waiting. Oh, forget about it. What is it? No, it's a priestess, okay? It's a priestess. Please, Henrique, volta lá no texto. Guys, come on. A priestess. It is. When it talks about the captains of the saints, that's okay, okay? You don't. That's okay if you don't know. I just want to know that you're there. Okay, I'll show you. On captains of the saints, the text goes, it tells the story of Bahia Street children in the 30s. A love story about Dora and Pedro Bala, the exploits of Ben. And then it says, Aninha, high priestess of the candomblé. See it? Have you found it? She is the high priestess of the candomblé temple. Priestess is the feminine of the word priest. Okay? So this is like waiter and waitress. It is very rare for words in English to have feminine and masculine. But this one does. You have a priest and a priestess. Have you found it? So let's go to C now. Help me out here. C. A continual passing by. Oh, this one's so easy. A continuous passing by as of people, objects, or events. When people are on the streets and they can be marching or they can be celebrating, they can have street cars and they organize all of them on the streets. That would be a... What? This one's easy. This one you don't even need to look in the text to know. Come on, we have it for Carnival. We have it for the 4th of July, September 7th. We have it for Gay Pride now. What is it? Tá, se eles responderam, eu tenho certeza. Certeza. has to be from the text, but it's easier than that. It's a parade, okay, you guys? I'm going to go faster. A parade. It's a parade. Next, the plan or main story as of a movie or literary work. The general idea of the story that you find at the cover of the book. It's the plot. The plot. Unable to see. When a person is unable to see, you say they are blind. And a fictitious narrative portraying characters and presenting a sequential organization of action and scenes is a novel, which was our false cognate. Okay? I'm sorry, I'm going faster. It's just because this is just a correction of the homework you guys did, right? Okay. Yeah, let me see. Novel. Thank you. Thank you, Gabi. And number 3, according to the text, we can infer that the social situation of Bahia has always been of richness and abundance. As we read the text, it talks about the problems that the state has suffered, right? When it talks about the captain of the sands, poverty, kids who live on the streets. So it's not really only about abundance. Captains of the Sands also tell the story of Gabriela. Come on. Those are 2 books, so they are not together. False. Jorge Amado's literary works are of the greatest importance to literature worldwide. This is the correct one. They talk about it in the beginning of the text, right? How his literature is important and famous all throughout the world. And carnival parades have never celebrated Jorge Amado's work. They mention also in the text that there was a certain samba school that had a parade according or based on his works, celebrating his works. So that one is not true either. So the correct one is letter C. Okay? Let's move on. Let's continue. Please, Henrique, next. To the topic of today's lesson. So today, we're going to study the future perfect. Now, pay attention. In English, we have the simple tenses, we have the continuous or progressive tenses, and we have the future tenses. What do the future tenses have in common? The future tenses, the future, right? What do the perfect tenses have in common? All perfect tenses, they have the verb have as its auxiliary, okay? So to be a perfect tense, you are going to have the verb have as an auxiliary. The present perfect, have, and the past participle. The past perfect, had, and a past participle. And the future perfect, will have, and a past participle. Okay? So the structure is simple. Because it is a perfect tense, you must have the verb to have in it. And because it is future, you are going to use will have. So the structure will be subject plus will have plus a verb in the past participle. Now, what is the past participle? For regular verbs, the past participle is the verb plus ed. Simple as that. And for irregular verbs, you must know the verb itself because it doesn't follow any specific rule. Okay? Now, the structure is simple. Future perfect. And then the past participle, right? This is simple. But when do we use the future perfect? I'm going to use a timeline, okay? This is our timeline for our lives. This is the present. This is now, today. This is my past. And then I have the future. I am going to establish a time in the future. I'm going to establish maybe 2030. Okay? So, I am talking about the future. Any moment after now. And I established 2030 as the limit in the future I'm talking about. Now, I am going to tell you about something that will happen in the future, but before this limit, before 2030. So I have two ideas of future. One is 2030, which is the future ahead, and a future that is going to happen closer, a future that's going to happen before 2030. So, I have two futures, right? The future that is closest to me, closest to now, I'm going to use present, future perfect. So, if I say, what will you have done by the year 2030? And you tell me, by 2030. So here is the farthest future I'm considering. So by 2030, something will happen before, right? For this something that happens in my future, but it is before 2030, 2030 because I chose 2030, I am going to use the future perfect. I'm going to say by 2030, I will have graduated. I'm sure you all will have graduated, maybe become masters or have your PhDs by then. By 2030, I will have graduated. If I say, I will graduate in 2030, it means that this is going to happen right here. When I use the future perfect, the idea is that this is going to happen sometime before 2030. So by 2030, I will have graduated. So that's the limit, and this is something that will definitely happen before. Okay? Is that clear? So I can have maybe not a year or a precise date, but I can have a situation. Next class is next Friday. So by next Friday, you will have studied English. So I'm saying not on Friday. On Friday, of course you will study English because we'll be together. But sometimes before that, I expect you to study English. So by next Friday, you will have studied 2 hours of English. So this is an expectation of something that will happen before next Friday. Is that clear, guys? So the idea, in order to have future perfect, you must have in mind two different futures. The one that's closest to the present is the one you're going to write in future perfect. Okay? So, for example, the sentence we have in our books, the Jorge Amado Foundation will have developed several cultural activities by 2020. So, we can tell first that this is an old text because it is already 2020, right? But suppose we are talking in 2019, and they say the Jorge Amado Foundation will have developed several cultural activities by 2020. So, before 2020, okay? Any time between the present and 2020, they will have developed these activities, okay? Not in 2020, not after 2020, but any time before. Sentence in the negative. The story of Gabriela and Naís Saad in Gabriela Club and Cinema won't have ceased to enchant readers by the next decades. So, when the next decades arrive, the book won't have ceased. It won't have stopped making people enchanted with the plot. And a question, will many people have read Captains of the Sand by 10 years from now or 10 years from now? Yes, they will. No, they won't. So the limit there, 10 years from now, it would be the same 2030. So here is the limit, 10 years from now. Will people have done so before 2030? That's why we use the future perfect. Okay? So, the explanation em português, o futuro perfeito é utilizado para expressar uma ação que terá ou não. If it's negative, it won't. If it's affirmative, it will. Acontecido antes de determinado momento no futuro. Two futures, the farthest away is future. The one that's closest to the present, future perfect. The students will have finished the project by the end of the month. So when the end of the month arrives, the projects will be finished. Okay? So far so good for the future perfect. So I am going to ask you something, and you are going to type for Tassi so that she can show me, okay? By the end of the year, what book will you have read? You cannot have read it already, because I am talking about the future. It's future perfect, okay? So you cannot talk about a book that you finished already. It has to be a book that you will read in the future, but before the end of the year. So by the end of the year, what book will you have read? What book will you have read by the end of the year? Come on, this is going to be now your goal. We are setting a reading goal. The book you type, you are really going to have to read it by the end of the year. So type it. What book will you have read by the end of the year? I have answers. By the end of the year, I will have read Imperium. Perfect, Thais. Thank you. Only Thais is there. Are you real, guys? Come on. Anybody else? I will have read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Is that the first one of the books? I will have read it because you guys suggested and insisted. I think it was Daniel who said that I should really read it. So I will have read the Philosopher's Stone. The Sorcerer's Stone? Help me out, I don't remember the name. But I will have read it by the end of the year. Only Thais? You guys, I'm so disappointed at you today. I'm going to go on a strike. Oh, I erased it. Okay, but anyhow, is it clear to you the idea behind the future perfect? We are going to exercise it after the break. Now, we're going to stop because you guys are going to go to the break. I am going to have a break. I'm going to drink some coffee and water, but you are going to do something. And I hope more of you guys do it. Please, Henrique, abre lá aquela página que a gente deixou combinada. Aqui tem o QR code. Attention. Yeah? Attention. You are going to get into this QR code and you are going to post a picture of yours, if it's okay with you, and you are going to type something about yourself. Introduce yourself a little bit. You are going to do this during the break. While I am taking my break and I'm chilling, you guys are going to be doing this. Thank you. Pedro says, by the end of the year, I will have read the Heroes of Olympus series. And Gabi says, by the end of the year, I will have read Story of a Soul. Is that it? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, guys. So, as I was saying, Now, during the break, you guys are going to get this QR code and you're going to enter this page. And as a note, you are going to put a picture of yours and a little introducing of yourself. This is your homework for the break, and you owe me a homework, so you're going to do it. Meanwhile, I'm going to go outside, drink some coffee, and when I get back, I want to see lots of pictures and lots of cute people introducing themselves. Okay? So let's go to the break. Thank you, guys. I'll see you soon.